What's going on, guys? FlynnMasters coming at you with another video, and today I'll be ranking all 23 winners of Hell's Kitchen. Now, of course, this was one of the first HK videos I ever made on the channel, and I said this then, but obviously ranking winners of Hell's Kitchen is pretty tough given there's so much that is cut out, and I kind of just went based off memory when I first made that video. But now that it's been nearly 4 years since then, with 3 new winners to add, and now that I have a better understanding of the winners, given I've done a story video on most of them, I think now would be a good time to update my rankings. Now again, I still factor in things like the cast they went up against. I merely don't take challenge performance as seriously as leadership and dinner service performance. And of course, how I personally feel about them goes out the window when doing these rankings. So with all that said, let's get this list started with number 23. The worst winner in Hell's Kitchen history, in my opinion, is still Nona. And yeah, I have a hard time seeing Nona ever not being last. While I will admit though, she was pretty good through the first start of the season, minus her awful signature dish. She just made so many mistakes from the final 11 to Black Jackets, with her final 8 service being one of the worst services and flat out moments from a winner ever, getting kicked out. I mean, after that, she damn near didn't even make a Black Jacket on this awful season. Like, my God, that's awful. Now, I will say her Black Jacket performance was pretty good, easily the best out of the 6 in the group. But regardless, that doesn't change the fact that she still fell into a win at that end game as the clear frontrunners and best chefs this season in Julian and especially Russell completely tanked as leaders. And again, while Nona did fine as a leader, had Julian or Russell even been decent, she just flat out does not win this season. So between the massive inconsistency and falling into a win, all while being on, in my opinion, the least talented season ever, Nona is very clearly the worst winner in HK history, in my opinion. At number 22, I still have Christina Mashimer as the second worst winner. Now I will say, when I first made the winner ranking video, I felt that she deserved most of her 5 nominations, other than the first one, of course. Nowadays, I do feel she was put up a lot of times for petty reasons, like her second nom, she was just never in any true danger most of the time. But with that said, again, she was just way too inconsistent for a winner, although nothing ever too bad other than, literally burning Ramsay's hand twice. And again, season 4 is an awful season talent-wise, and she just simply would not have won the season had Petrosa not been freaking nearly a 50-year-old man. So while I am a bit higher on Christina these days, I still do think she is pretty easily the second worst winner in the show's history. At number 21 is who many people have as last, and I can honestly see it, but I have Michelle, the of course controversial winner of All Stars. And here's the thing, I know a lot of people could argue she should automatically be last for being directly saved by a twist, unlike the other 22 winners. But for me, she was a lot more talented than Christina and Nona, and for that matter, a lot of other winners. But the thing is, those two also got some pretty lucky breaks in their respective seasons, despite it immediately not being a twist. And again, Michelle wasn't amazing this season, but I do always find it odd when people say she was flat out a bad winner this season. Like, obviously she didn't display the best of actions, but can you blame her? And I almost put her higher for winning this season, despite having to deal with all those toxic personalities on the red team. So while overall I'm higher on Michelle than most, I too just simply cannot overlook her obviously extremely lucky break. But I still do think despite that lucky break, she is better than Christina and Nona. At number 20 is someone who I hate to put this low, as again, I've said it numerous times, I might not have had the fun I've had on this channel if it wasn't for this man, but I do have Michael Ray. And here's the thing, Michael literally made one mistake all season and played a strategic game throughout the competition, literally creating the sabotage test. But for God's sake, he was one of the only true chefs this season on a 12-person cast. Like, I'm sorry, I just can't justify putting him higher than other winners who simply had more to go through by default. And thus, he lands here at number 20. At number 19 could almost be word for word, and I do have the winner of the next season in Heather. And again, Heather's a top 10 favorite chef of mine, literally my favorite female winner, but literally no competition. And you could even argue that the season 2 cast is less talented than season 1, despite there being a bit more actual chefs this season. That's how bad the cast is. The reason why she is above Michael, though, is I feel her standout performances, such as her time on the blue team and of course her Final 5 performance and general leadership outshines Michael. But yeah, again, I just don't feel right putting her above other winners who simply just had so much more to go through. At number 18, and I'm sure you can probably already predict, but I do have the season 3 winner, Rock. Now, season 3 at this point, pretty much every chef had actual experience, and thus that's what gives Rock the edge over Michael and Heather, as I do think he was just slightly worse than those two, if only for his awful Black Jacket service. But yeah, he obviously had much better competition this season than Heather and Michael. But nonetheless, it still was, of course, only a 12-person cast. And even though it was better, it still wasn't good in the grand scheme of things. I mean, Josh made a Black Jacket this season, for God's sake. So yeah, guys, I mean, roast me in the comments if you must, but I hope you can see my reasoning for putting the first three winners so low, despite them being objectively great winners as a whole. At number 17, and man, these rankings continue to kill me as I have another all-time favorite of mine pretty low, and that is the winner of Season 12, Scott. And yeah, I won't be the dead horse on this one, as despite me loving Scott, I'm not afraid to admit how inconsistent and frankly lucky he was at times. He made a couple mistakes during the infamous first three services, had an awful pizza service, had a meh Final 11 service that I've been vocal about he could have very well gone home that night, was damn near the end of the Cook for Your Life challenge, and again, while his time on the red team, he was put up for mostly petty reasons, his Final 7 service is one of the worst services from a winner ever, and even the first Black Jacket service, while he obviously deserved to survive over Keisha, it wasn't great. But despite all of that, you just cannot deny his incredible leadership. In my mind, will always be the greatest pass runner in the history of the show. But despite his great leadership, that doesn't quite make up for how inconsistent he was throughout all season, especially when you compare him to other winners. So, as much as it pains me, my boy Scott is here at number 17. At number 16 is someone very different from Scott. And again, with all due respect to her, I don't like that I have her higher than my beloved Scott. But at number 16 is Holly. And again, while Holly was pretty much as consistent as could be, she was literally a mouse all season. And you could even argue that her not being the leadership type is what might have led the red team to not win one service. I mean, obviously there's a much other bigger important factors, obviously. But the fact that she was easily the best cook, you know, they needed someone like Holly to step up, and she just obviously didn't, at least from what we saw. Now, the thing that does put her just above Scott for me is not only her being far more consistent, but I did, kind of forget how good of a leader Holly was, at least when it came to the Final Four and finale. I know I just got done saying she wasn't a leader at all, but, when it mattered the most, she definitely stepped up and did even better than Jay, who ended up being a little sous chef for Ramsay. So while Holly is super forgettable as a winner, especially compared to the couple winners below her, I do have her relatively high, all things considered, at 16. At number 15 is someone who I was very low on in my first ranking, and while I'm a bit higher now, I still have her pretty low compared to most people, with that being the winner of season 15, Ariel Malone. And she truly only had a couple bad services and mistakes throughout the season, and they just so happened to come at the worst possible times and got her nominated and almost sent home. But other than that, she was a great chef and leader, although I do also feel I have to knock her a bit for her attitude. I know I said I wouldn't, but I mean, I can't imagine, her making enemies nonstop is what Ramsay wants from a future employee. And that's the big reason I have Ariel so low. She just got so lucky to be on a season where nobody really stood out as a head chef. I mean, bless Kristen and Ariel's heart, but they obviously just don't have that it factor that Ramsay looks for. I mean, go through any season, like maybe other than, 4 and 8, for example, I could see Ariel winning. But every other season, I could see her, not only losing to the other winners, but for that matter, like some of the runner-ups and Black Jackets. Again, she just got so lucky she wasn't on a very talented cast, and for that matter, a cast with no true standout chef. Something that not even the first 3 seasons can say. So while I am higher on Ariel now, I still always feel she kind of fell in a win, as unfair as that may sound considering she's obviously more dominant than the winners we've talked about so far. But nonetheless, I do think 15 is a good spot for her. At number 14 is someone who I may have higher than other people, with that being season 11's winner, Janelle. And I said this before, but there's a reason why I couldn't even make a video about her, as she was so invisible those first 12-ish episodes, which was a good thing, as she didn't really make one mistake that I could think of, although granted she didn't stand out either. Now I will admit her final 8 on was pretty shaky for a winner, and got lucky that she was on a weak cast, and got extremely lucky that not only John tanked as leader, but that Mary was just too inconsistent all season, as had either of those two just been slightly better, Janelle just does not win the season. So yeah, overall, just a fine winner Janelle is, who got pretty lucky, honestly, at that end game. So I think 14 is a good spot for her. These next 2 chefs I've dropped the most on, with this chef actually being in my top 5 in my original video. But here now at 13 is Corey. And the big reason why I had Corey so high was due to being the oldest winner ever at the time, and to win such a talented season at her age was so impressive to me. But like, you know, now it's like, okay, I just don't see her as much of a standout chef compared to other top tier winners. I mean, there's a reason why I always kind of forget about her winning when talking about the season, especially compared to the other fan favorites. She also kind of got off to a slow start early on, and while it turned it on in the end game, I'm just simply not as impressed now as I was 4 years ago. But due to her winning this season on such a talented cast, that still propels her above the likes of Ariel and Janelle, who won a much weaker cast. And like I said, I also dropped on this chef a bit, although honestly that's more so due to there being 3 new winners I find better than him, with that being the winner of Season 9, Paul. And aside from the better winners, here's the other thing. Paul had a great run in Season 9 for sure, although his bad services are some of the more bad moments from a winner for sure. But the big thing is, he just got so lucky that Will collapsed in the finale. And again, Paul had the best finale performance ever, in my opinion. Maybe, you know, other than Scott, as he did something that not even Ramsay could do by getting Elise and Carrie to work together. But even then, had Will just been literally just slightly better, Paul just flat out does not win the season. So while I'm not the biggest fan of Paul, obviously, I can admit he's a great winner, but I do think other winners are simply more top tier for one reason or another. And the fact that he came so close to losing, you know, that kind of lands him outside the top 10 now. Overall lands here at number 12. On to number 11 now, and we have the winner of season 16, with that being Ryan. And I feel she's the perfect middle tier placement, as she was pretty damn dominant throughout the season, although not too many true standout performances. But at the same time, she had absolutely no competition, as she essentially just had to beat 2 people in Heather and Heidi. 2 great chefs, to be fair, and credit to Ryan for doing just that and beating them at that endgame. But while she's a dominant on paper winner, similar to the first 3 winners, while it may be unfair, I gotta find some way to separate these great winners. And Ryan just simply didn't have much competition compared to the winners above her, which is why I actually do have her outside the top 10. On to the top 10 now, and I do not care what others might think of her. I still have Christina Wilson as a top 10 winner. And again, obviously I dropped on her a bit since my first ranking, as while I do see her flaws now compared to other true top tier winners, I still think it's crazy to have her as like a bottom 5 winner, if not solely due to the fact that she had to basically be a babysitter to 8 other ladies this season who are constantly fighting. And yet despite all the fighting, a lot of people forget that the red team was a lot better than the blue team this season, only losing 1 service to them all season, to which I think you could honestly attribute that to Christina's leadership. But again, she just simply wasn't as consistent as other winners, obviously highlighted by her first awful service, to which, like I've said before, I don't think she was going home, but still. So while she's definitely borderline for sure, I always say there's a reason why Christina became Ramsay's protege. And, you know, her standout moments, leadership, and in general, staying sane on the season 10 red team, and for all intents and purposes being the leader, and despite, you know, that's what still keeps her in my top 10. At number 9 is our most recent winner, Kyle. And Kyle is interesting in that it was a tale of 2 halves for him, as while he obviously wasn't bad by any means early on, he definitely wasn't a standout, and even had his fair share of mistakes here and there that almost got him eliminated at the final 10. And yeah, a lot of fans didn't even think he had what it took to be a black jacket at that point, for honestly very good reason. But man, he absolutely flipped a switch after nearly going home, dominating the charity night pass run, winning the best of the worst, having some great challenge dishes that earned him a black jacket and final 2 spot, and most importantly, dominating as a leader when I don't think many people thought this bubbly chef would, especially when he was competing against a bunch of other great dominant head chefs. So yeah, if it honestly wasn't for the cast he was on, I might have him a bit lower, but considering Kyle's dominant second half and winning a season against a great group of head chefs, I do believe he is a top 10 winner. At number 8 is who many people have in their top 5, but at 8 for me is the winner of season 13, Latasha. And yeah, Latasha was a beast, and the big thing Latasha has in her favor is that season 13 is a very underrated cast, and she had an amazing endgame, dominating the Black Jacket services, especially the final 5, along with a great leadership performance at the final 4 and finale. But yeah, she definitely got off to a somewhat slow start with an all-time bad signature dish and getting the red team kicked out in service 3. But other than that, she was pretty fantastic. But again, similar to a lot of the other winners outside the top 5, just not as many standout performances other than her endgame. So again, great winner. I'm a lot higher on her now than I was before. Just still not quite a top 5 winner in my opinion. At number 7 is the winner of Young Guns and Trenton. And Trenton, of course, is not a flashy winner whatsoever. I would even argue right behind Holly in terms of quietness, with his tuna incident being one of the worst moments from a winner ever. And you could even argue he would have been the final 3 boot had it not been for a final 3 finale. But like the kid was just incredible on an all-time talented season. Not to mention he was a challenge beast as well, one of the better challenge competitors for a winner. So I mean, Trenton on paper could easily be a top 5 winner, but due to his lack of leadership and stand-up performances, that does leave him out. But still obviously very high here at number 7. At number 6 is the winner of season 5 and Danny. And again, I've said it multiple times, but pretty much after his bad premiere, he was fantastic the rest of the season. Now, I will say he wasn't a standout leader by any means, and of course, the season 5 cast, while one of the more talented cast of the first 10 seasons, it's still obviously not amazing or anything. But like at the same time, the fact that this kid was able to dominate a season of Hell's Kitchen, where Ramsay was at his angriest, is super impressive to me. And the fact that he was able to turn it on in the end game and beat the incredible Paula. Like, you just cannot get more solid than Danny. But again, those minor, and I mean extreme minor flaws do leave him out of the top 5. On to the top 5 now, and at number 5 is the winner of Battle of the Ages and Alex. And Alex is an obvious winner for a reason, as I personally only remember him making one service mistake during the Black Jackets. Others told me he made a few more, but like whatever. He wasn't a challenge stand-up by any means, and was just fine as a leader. But I think what makes him stand out is just how much he had to go through compared to other winners, as he had to compete in 4 elimination challenges this season, and obviously not only survived, but thrived in all of them, and of course had a ton of talent to deal with this season. And while yes, you could argue this season was designed for a 40+ winner, I mean, the fact that he is indeed the oldest and only 40+ winner is another massive factor in his favor. So yeah, simply so many things going for Alex, and that's why he is a top 5 winner in my opinion. At number 4 is the winner of Rookies versus Veterans and Ariel. And yeah, there's not much to say about Ariel other than she was super dominant, made one dinner service mistake all season, was great in all aspects of the kitchen, and won a very talented season where she beat 7 other damn good veterans for the most part, and 8 mostly talented rookies. And like I said in my first winner video, I debated on if I should knock her for being a 2-time player, but if anything now, that makes her even more impressive, as Ramsay was as we saw, he was a lot more harder on the veterans than the rookies, especially when it came to eliminations, and honestly, rightfully so for that matter. So for Ariel to dominate as much as she did, given her situation, I think is what really sets her apart from a lot of the other truly dominant winners below her, which is why she lands here at number 4. At number 3 is the winner of the American Dream and Ryan. And yeah, I don't even know if Ryan made one mistake all season. Like, I'm sure he made like at least one challenge or service mistake here and there, but he was pretty damn dominant and is a top 5 leader in the history of the show when looking at his past and finale performance. However, I will say he was obviously outshined by the likes of Jonathan and Demir early on, and the big thing I debated on was how much I should punish him for being the final chef to earn a black jacket. You could make the argument, you know, he got saved by a twist. But it wasn't like an out-of-nowhere twist. Like, if anything, you could even argue in Ryan's favor that his dish was so good that Ramsay had no choice but to bring back the 6 Black Jacket Brigade again. So, you know, with all that said, he has an amazing resume, and he won, in my opinion, the most talented season in the show's history. And so Ryan is a top-tier winner for sure, ultimately landing here at number 3. At number 2, and I don't care what anyone says, I still have to put Dave Levy as the second best winner in the history of the show. And again, he's probably the worst challenge performer for a Hell's Kitchen winner, wasn't a standout leader by any means, and made a service mistake every once in a while. But honestly, throw that all out the window. For this man to do as well as he did, despite having one working arm, is legitimately insane, especially some of those services where he was literally doing everything by himself. Again, if it wasn't for his injury, he probably would be a lot lower. But what he was able to pull off this season is something out of a movie. And if the winner above him wasn't simply on another level as a contestant, he would easily be number 1. But nonetheless, I don't care what anyone says, Dave Levy is the second best winner in Hell's Kitchen history. But at number 1, the very clear best winner in Hell's Kitchen history is Megan. And yeah, I said this when making a story video, but she was literally like another sous chef this season as opposed to an actual chef. She was that dominant and clearly too good for the show. I mean, she had one service mistake all season, and even that came during a time where it was just non-stop meat orders. She didn't have one bad challenge dish, despite admittedly not being a challenge dominator. And again, arguably the best leader in the history of the show, in my opinion, just behind Scott. Just an insane, all-time great performance, and I can't imagine how Megan will ever be topped as the Hell's Kitchen GOAT. So there you have it, guys, my updated winner rankings for all 23 Hell's Kitchen winners. I'm sure you guys will have a lot to say about these rankings, so air it out in the comments below, along with your own rankings, and be sure to hit that subscribe and like button to support the channel. And with all that said, take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.